Oh no. The tablet is being a noob. Yeah, I'm not going to read it because it's 2 chapters long. But, oh man, being totally good right now. Give me a moment. At the end of the service, we're going to talk to you about our church. Well, most of you know that we are considering combining with VIF. And let me make that official. It's actually, most people have been told already, but I chose to let people know during the end of the year. Many of you were on holiday. But, because it didn't want to cause chaos. Okay? But we are considering it. It doesn't seem like anyone is against the idea. Some are for it, some lean towards it, and there have been some, some are cautious about it. But mostly, you guys are positive about it. And just so you guys know, and I'll probably have to tell the story again to those who are not here today, that what happened was around the 3rd quarter in September of last year, Joel wrote me a super long email telling me that he inviting me to combine the church with him. And so I didn't take him seriously because it is very distracting idea. But he came after me, he asked me about it more and more, and so finally I realized he's serious. Then I started prayed about it. I think about 2 months before I talked to the leaders about it, and then the leaders of course knew about it for another 1 month before church members found out. So we're now in January, September, October, November, December, January, February. So it is not something that we take lightly. It's a big move because there's no way to. I don't think it's very hard for us to jump into this and then want to come out. So we want to be sure if we make the leap, we should. It's 100% or not at all already. And the idea here is that we've always felt like their church has certain quality. I've always felt. I don't know about you guys, but I've been to their church. You have not been there. Joel and I, Joel and I, feel like that church has qualities that we don't have, and our church has a lot of things that they want as well. And after all, they did start out of this church. The church members, the core group, was taken out from this church. We think we are trying to build something where we did 1 year after we combined, we want to double our numbers. Instead of doing church in a small way, Joel and I feel like it's time for us to take a leap. So we can talk more about it. If you have any questions, you want to talk to me one-on-one or whatever, please feel free. Otherwise, I think everyone has got a chance to respond because you're all part of this family. We want to make sure that everyone gets in on this. Okay, this decision, and we want to try as much as possible to make sure that all of us will still be part of this family. All of us will continue to come to church. Nobody will backslide from this incident, so traumatic. Combined church backslide. Okay, but otherwise, it's this positive stuff we're looking. I'm kind of looking forward to it. Personally, I'm looking forward to having someone who will stand beside me. Because I feel sometimes here, yes, the leaders are here, but their calling is to be in the marketplace. So I'm looking forward to some people who are pastors, who are called into the ministry, to stand alongside me so that I can, have backup. in the notice, in the blink of an eye, they are right there, the pastors are there. They got quite a few pastors there as well. So yeah, sort of things. Now, if you're at 2 Corinthians already, today we want to talk about something else that's going on in our church. And later you will get to see the situation. But now, here's a hint of what's going on. We're going to talk about giving. Alright? And as the pastor, sometimes I'll confess this is that I don't like to talk about it. Because it seems like I'm asking you all to give me more money because I'm paid by the church and I'm the number one expense for the church. And I'll be very transparent with you guys, and I have been all along. And you guys know that my salary is less than 2.5K. So I'm not ashamed of it. I'm not proud of it as well. If I were to boast, I would boast that God has provided. God has never failed. That even though I have children, so Susanna, Derek, God will provide. Easily, it's no big deal. And I thank God for providing through people. Okay? Although, you go around your house, you turn on the tap, any tap in your house, and you have running water. But all of it, although different tap, comes from the same source. It comes from the reservoir. Okay? And there's way more where it came from. So that is how God provides. Sometimes God might provide through one person, or even a non-Christian, or a church member, whatever it is. But all things come from God. And I'm glad that I boast in the fact that God has provided for me. And you guys know me. You guys have been in my house. You guys know me personally. You know the car I drive, everything. And God has truly been faithful to my family. And of course, yesterday, just for fun, I was outside with my children and some friends, enjoying the evening breeze, the evening weather, and of course, I posted a picture which got a lot of people commenting and liking it. Is that I'm kind of like a pseudo millionaire because my house is worth 1 million ringgit now. So yay! But even that is an impossible feat. I do not understand how. I used to live in church. Like, if this was church last time and I was the pastor's kid here, I'd be living in the room behind. And my parents would have another room, but we'll be staying in church. And now, my family, within my own family plus my parents, we have 2 houses. One that we can rent to people some more. So we feel like, whoa, we're so rich. Okay, so, I'm going to boast in that. But when it comes to church, I'm the biggest expense, and telling you guys to give more money seems like kind of like a conflict of interest. But as a pastor, I need to preach the full gospel. The Bible says to give to the church. Now, you guys got to go read 2 Corinthians 8 and 9. And it's my favorite verse, favorite few chapters on giving. But instead of reading the whole 2 chapters, I'm going to give you the points, and then you can look at it, you can compare. Tell me if I'm not preaching the truth, alright? And we'll discuss more about it during lunch. Here's the thing. Number one thing was that during Christmas time, New Year time, end of the year, when our church was still being renovated and we were meeting at my house, we had one of the services, and it was more like a cell group style, and we talked about Malachi chapter 1. And of course, we know Malachi famous for the tithing chapters. It's at the end of the chapter, end of Malachi. But I was talking about the beginning of Malachi. Now the situation was this. It was not that the Israelites were not tithing. The Israelites were tithing, but the Israelites was giving God leftovers, rubbish. Okay, things that they didn't really want. Because when you tithe to God, you're supposed to bring your first fruit, your best fruit. You're supposed to give the best, not the leftover. Okay, a story is once told of this farmer. Okay, the cow gave birth to twin calves. Okay, so the farmer was very happy lah, double happiness. So he decided that, I'm going to give God one of these calves. Since I only expected one and I got 2, I should give one to God. Doesn't matter. And then so the family asked the farmer, which one are you going to give to the Lord? Okay? And the farmer said, when it comes time for me to give or to sell the calf, I will know which calf belongs to the Lord. And the weeks went by, and it came time for him to fulfill that promise of giving one calf to the Lord. And he went to the market and tried to sell the calf. But something happened in the market. And he came back to the family the same day and told the family this sad news, which is, the Lord's calf died, but I sold our calf. Sometimes we do that. The one that is defective, the one that we don't want, the one that is left over, that didn't die, that died, we give to the Lord. The one that didn't die, we keep for ourselves. Now, I'm not just talking about money here, in this sense. I'm talking also about our time. Okay? And it's so important, our time, our efforts, our energies, that we give God our best. I want to give God my best. That's why I started serving God young. I feel like these are my best years, and I want to give God my best years as well. Not just my money, not just my words, but my best years. Some of you guys, all of you guys are younger than me. The best years are ahead of you. Serve God while you still have energy. Okay? So, tithing. Let's go into it. I am focusing on talking about giving today, and giving of money, not so much time, okay? Now, in the Old Testament, picking up from Malachi again, I remind you guys, I mentioned this before in church, is that we think of tithes as 10%, and that is correct, because that's roughly what it means in the Bible. But if you look at the Bible and you study it, you realize that these Israelites didn't just give 10%. We always make fun of Jews for being stingy people, right? But actually the fact is that they actually give upwards of 25% of their income to God. Here is kind of like the breakdown that I wrote down. Okay, how I come up with 25% is this. They give 10% of gross to fund ministry. Okay? They give that to the maintenance of the temple. In our case, if you want to apply it today, it will be maintenance of our church. We don't really have a church, we use this place, but we do give a gift to ARC for their generosity, because we're using it. We should give, we should have a part in that. So they give 10% of that to maybe the pastor, the priest, and of course maintenance of the temple. They also give 10% of their gross to feasts and festivals. When something special happened in their church, what they do was, they pull together, like there was a Christmas dinner or lunch together. Nobody came and had free lunch. They were part of it. Okay? They gave 10% to it. And if you guys give 10% to it, I think we had pretty good feast around here. And we do, almost every Sunday. And on top of that, they give about 3.3%. This is of course from Google and from people who studied the Jewish system of giving and all that. And they say 3.3% of their gross salary to whatever needs as it arose. Like if the temple was broken, they need to repair something, they give on top of that. And then of course, additional here and there a little bit, comes up to about 25%. Now, in the New Testament, however, we know that there were Pharisees who gave a lot of money to God. They gave of their money, but they didn't give the heart. And that too is wrong. Now let me paint you this picture, okay? One is that not to give is wrong. It is commanded by God that we should give. The next thing is this. If you're going to give grudgingly, thank you for giving, but God is saying no thank you. Because God wants your heart, not your money. If you're going to give grudgingly, I tell you that you need to change your heart. But of course the best situation is this, is that you give and you're happy about it. Okay? So sometimes we feel like, oh, we don't want to give. You don't give at all. That's bad, that's wrong. Because God commanded it and you're going against God's command. And then sometimes we give just because God said so. I want to thank you for your obedience. But God is not just looking for obedience of your action, but He wants your heart. He is jealous after your heart. But of course, the best situation is when you do it and you do it cheerfully. And we come back to the 2 Corinthians chapter 8 and 9, and it tells us that the Macedonians, these 2 chapters is all about the Macedonian church who were giving, and they were giving out their poverty. And I always say there are only 3 principles that you need to know when it comes to giving. And here it is. Number 1 thing is that you need to give cheerfully. When you give, be happy about it. I mean, be thankful. 1, you actually can give. And like it says in Acts chapter 20 verse 35, it says it's better to give than to receive. There's a lot of sense in that. A lot of common sense, because you actually can give. Many people cannot afford to give. So be thankful and be happy that you can give. And Zhen Xing has told you that when you budget to give. Because healthy, happy people have the ability to give. If you cannot give, then something is wrong with you. And I'm not just talking about Bible context. This is like worldly standards. Of course, their budgeting system is different. He suggested, as per recommendation, 5%. Okay, but I tell you, the Christian way is 10%. And 10% is the minimum, not the ceiling. Doesn't mean you don't give more than 10%. It means that you start from there, 10% first. And if God blesses you, and if you are cheerful and happy and willing to give some more. Bless God with what you have. Okay? That's the first principle. Give cheerfully. 3 things. Okay? The next thing is this. As you can see from 2 Corinthians chapter 8 verse 3, was that these Macedonians, they gave sacrificially. Understand that when it hurts you to give, doesn't mean you have to be upset about it or angry about it. God, why do you make me give so much? Why do you require me so much? It should be a giving that's sacrificial. When you give something to your loved ones, you don't give something that costs you nothing. Because you want to express your love to someone, which is what I always remind us week in, week out. Today you give, not because you're paying an entrance fee, a cover charge, or because you owe it to anyone. Although the truth is that we do. We owe everything to God actually. But we give sacrificially because we are happy to, and we acknowledge that the source, although this is the tap, I don't know, the Star, Unilever, whatever your company is, okay, that is the source. You think that is where you get your money from, but the source, the tap is connected to the greater source. Understand that everything you have, not just money, life itself, time, everything was given to us by God. And when we do this sacrificially, we honor Him. God is happy. Okay? So give cheerfully, give sacrificially. And also this third last thing, just 3 things, is this. Give consistently. Give regularly. Decide for yourself. You don't have to follow my way. My way is I give monthly. And that's a common practice. But oftentimes, especially during youth ministry, parents would give their kids, the students, allowance, not salary, allowance, weekly. And so I would tell my youth members that, okay, if they give you weekly, it might be easier for you to just give your tithes weekly. And you can do that. If you want to give yearly, I don't recommend it, because it's really tough, because you kind of like gather this huge amount, and then lump sum is like, you can't even give 100 a month. Suddenly at the end of the year you need to give 1,200. That's even harder. But whatever it is, give consistently. Okay? These are the 3 things that you need to do. You need to consider in your giving. Now, I want to just quickly highlight this connection between chapter 8 and chapter 9. I'm going to show you what happens, how to give, and what happens when you give. is this. And I'm going to parallel this to, here are the verses for today, okay? Chapter 8 and chapter 9, and we're going to kind of like really quickly run through the both of it. And based on last week's service when Pastor Brian preached and he compared the gift of the Spirit, the fruit of the Spirit from Galatians and with the chapter in Corinthians on love. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you can go to our website and check out the notes. But it got me thinking, and I was reading 2 Corinthians chapter 8 and chapter 9, and I saw this, and I felt like this is fun, and I want to share this with you. Is this in chapter 8, verse 1? Giving was church-centered. When you give, it's great that you want to give even outside of church, but your first priority is to give within the church. If we want to give to a missionary, you want to channel your money to a missionary or to a pastor or minister or someone else outside of this church, go through the church. It makes for good administration. Like last time, we had some church members who needed help in church, and I've always told some of these members that never ask from the church member. Always talk to the church leaders and let the church leaders gather resources together. And even if you want to give to a certain person, you know that person has a need, he has raised them to you, go through the church. I've experienced people where they come to church. My own church was much larger, and what they do is they just ask for a simple thing, 10 ringgit only, 10 ringgit or 5 ringgit. Every Sunday, 10 ringgit or 5 ringgit. Okay? And people think, no, it's not a big amount of money, it's very small. This is a needy person, I'm giving, and God is happy. But the thing is, when you don't give properly or responsibly, what happened was we later found out that this guy was going around church members, and every week he would ask from as many as 10 people for 10 ringgit or 5 ringgit. And you do the math, and that is easily $100 or $50 at least. Everybody just give 5 ringgit, 10 people. So when we found out, suddenly it's like, you also give up, you also give, I also give more, 30 ringgit, someone who else to give. Suddenly we realized that, a lot of people have been giving, and this guy has been taking advantage of church members. So later on, we also centralized the giving, and that was based on a bad experience. So now that I learned that in my own church, we don't have to do the same thing here. If you want to give to someone, missionary or anything, it should be church-centered. The Macedonian church pulled together and then they sent money to other churches. And when you do that, when you're giving, okay, when you're giving is church-centered, it blesses others. And then you go to 2 Corinthians chapter 9, okay, chapter 8 and chapter 9, only these two chapters. Chapter 9, verse 1 to verse 5, you read that it blesses others. Okay? When your giving is church-centered, it blesses other people. And then we rewind back to chapter 8, and now from verse 2 to verse 9, it says that our giving must be from the heart. It must be sincere, it must be genuine. You must give out of love, not because you expect something in return. You're not a loan shark, okay? You don't threaten God, I give you this much. You say, if I tithe, you will bless me. It's not to twist God's arm. No doubt God is faithful, He will bless none the bless. But it's not an attempt to twist God's arm. I want a promotion, and so I want an increment. I'm earning 2,000 now. Instead of giving 2,000, I give tithes of 2,000, which is 200. I give 500 because I want to earn 5,000 bucks. Something like that. Okay, it's not to hold God at ransom, but you give sincerely and genuinely. And when you do that, when your giving is from the heart, you are blessed as a giver. In chapter 9, verse 6 to 11. When you give, you are blessed. That's Acts chapter 20, right? More blessed to give than to receive. And in back to chapter 8, verse 10 to verse 15, it says that your giving should be proportionate. Should be proportionate to what you can afford. Yes, I told you earlier that you need to give sacrificially. It should cost you something. But it doesn't mean you give recklessly also. Sometimes God will test our faith and ask us to give certain amount. But when all things are normal, do the normal thing, which is give proportionately. And when you give proportionately, what happens is God is glorified in chapter 9, verse 12 to verse 15. So your giving must be one, church-centered, two, from the heart, proportionate. And when you do that, the result of this type of giving is that it blesses others, it blesses you as the giver, and it blesses the Lord. When you give, when your giving is church-centered, it blesses others. When your giving is from the heart, the giver is blessed. When your giving is proportionate, God is glorified. Just a parallel for us to look at. Okay? So, today, we're going to end this time. The message is really simple. You guys heard it before. You guys heard it many times. But today, we have a little bit of news we want to share with you. And it's not good news. Okay, so it's good that it's all you're all our church members here. That's good. And this is our family affair. Zhensing, right? The money people, they know how to tell this to you better. Now, we have already put up our church accounts behind. But what has been happening is that in the past, about 1.5 years, and we've looked at the accounts, and we realized that the only people that have been giving to the church are the leaders. When we sit down and we have leaders meeting, and we look at our accounts, income and expenditure, we realize that, hey, what is going on here? We look at the tithes, not that we want to pinpoint out, and I think maybe you can cut the feed. Not that we want to pinpoint